We have but one burning question for the FWC, for the elected officials of the state of Florida, and that's who is protecting.
People question the Army Corps of Engineers in Cape Coral demanding answers about algae, although the department actually responsible for that didn't show for the meeting.
And still at least 300 people packed the Cape Coral Yacht Club to hear from the Corps about Lake Okeechobee water releases and the toxic impacts. To add fuel to the fire, during the meeting, just behind the Yacht Club's marina, this dead manatee, and one that's alive still, was found floating. Video circulating all over social media today.
It was powerful and it was timely.
We have a lot of protected species. Almost every game fish is protected in some way. Basically, every sport fish is protected in some way by the FWC and the state of Florida. So when these fish turn up dead by the dozens, by the hundreds, by the thousands, by the millions, when they turn up dead on our docks, on our beaches, who's responsible? When the state of Florida will prosecute any citizen for harvesting a certain fish that's protected. Throw you in jail for 6 months if you pet a manatee. Throw you in jail for 6 months if you interact with a dolphin. But when a dolphin dies and a manatee dies, a whale shark dies at the hands of leaders of the state and federal level, at the hands of organizations that are lining pockets of the elected officials to be able to dump their waste into the waterways. When that happens, when these organizations dump their waste into waterways, their nutrient-rich water, full of fertilizers, nitrates, full of phosphates, full of what it takes to make crops grow. When the state allows people to use fertilizers, when the state allows people to be able to overspray and over fertilize their lawns and crops, and then allow all of that nutrient rich water, fresh water, to be dumped into our saltwater estuaries and react with the natural red tides and react with the natural organisms in the salt water to create these devastating super blooms. It's plain and simple that it's a man-made disaster. We have red tide naturally. It's something that was discovered years and years and years and years ago. It's just something that everybody deals with, but it only lasts for 1 day, 3 days, maybe a week at the most, maybe. But this is no coincidence at all. The question at hand is, who is going to take responsibility for this? The state's job to prosecute you and I if we break the law. The state put in law into place. Federally, they put laws into place for a reason, but what happens when the state breaks those laws? What happens when elected officials are responsible for breaking the laws and killing innocent mammals and fish that are already protected by that same entity? That is the question that needs to be answered. I was watching the Army Corps of Engineers meeting last week in Cape Coral. A gentleman said he was in the Miami Canal in his boat. The water's crystal clear, but there's discharges going into that water. Why is that? The Lieutenant Colonel of the Army Corps of Engineers, her very first words were, well, there's a lawsuit going on. Bingo! Lawsuit. everybody's saying, everybody in my neck of the woods is saying nothing real is going to happen until a lawyer steps up, someone steps up and creates, an organization creates a lawsuit to really get something done fast, because it looks to me like Miami did it. Now Miami is, their pockets are super deep. So they're going to be responsible enough, if the state isn't going to be responsible, if the federal government's not going to be responsible, they're going to be responsible enough to file a lawsuit against the state, against the federal, against whoever they got to file to get the water clean before it goes in and ruins their way of life. It sounds like everyone should maybe try to follow suit with what Miami did, with the example that Miami set. You know, the red tide has consumed from Naples all the way up to Siesta. Moving forward with these south winds, guess what, St. Pete? Guess what, Bradenton Beach? You're probably going to be next. So you're going to get a taste of it. You're going to end up joining the fight, and it's going to go all the way up the coast as far as it needs to go. Depending on the winds, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming weeks if we saw St. Petersburg and Clearwater start complaining about dead fish on their beaches, because that's the way it's going. You know, right now St. Pete's got some crystal blue water on their beaches. Here, maybe in a week or so, it may turn to Coca-Cola. You know, it may turn to shit. So, hope you guys are ready for that financial impact, just like the Boca Grande, Fort Myers, Naples, Englewood, you know, all of our businesses have taken. My question for elected leaders is, when is the state responsible for state regulations? Who holds the state accountable for their own laws? And this is a quick, easy to understand overview of what's happening in the state of Florida right now. The nitrates and phosphates that have been consumed into Lake Okeechobee from Big Sugar, from down the Kissimmee River, from Mickey Mouse taking a shit, cow farmers, orange groves, golf courses, our yards, any type of farming in general, lawn fertilizers, Big Sugar. The way the Army Corps of Engineers has designed this is they direct all the water down to Lake Okeechobee. With all that water comes all the high nutrients. Big Sugar's on the south side of the lake. All of their high nutrient fertilizers and whatnot are all finding their way into Lake Okeechobee. So what's happening is you got this super nutrient rich water that is being dispersed both sides of the state. Not south. They're not dispersing any water south because of bad politics, because of filthy, dirty politics. The sugar industry is lining the pockets of the federal and state officials, saying, keep the water going sideways, don't send it south, don't ruin our crops, and we'll line your pockets. We'll put money into your pockets. Campaign contributions, direct and indirect contributions, fundraising for the politicians that get behind Big Sugar. All this nutrient-rich water combined with the Florida summer heat all forms what's called algae, green algae, blue-green algae. Forms in Lake Okeechobee, and it thrives throughout the whole water column, not just the top, not just what you can see, it's throughout the whole water column. By the mid-June, Lake Okeechobee is completely stacked full of nutrients and green algae that's feeding off of the phosphates and the nitrates that are in the water. and making it grow.
Making it grow.
Making it grow.
When the water goes out into the Caloosahatchee and the St. Lucie River, hits the salt water, the minute it hits the salt water, it dies. When it hits the salt water and dies, it does like any other living organism does when it dies. It starts to stink and rot. When it does that, it sucks all the oxygen out of the water, and that's when it becomes poisonous to the marine life. That's one problem. Green algae itself is deadly. Green algae itself sucks the oxygen out of the water, which kills fish. But at the same time, when the green algae dies, it's also a vehicle for the phosphates and the nitrates to become available to the red tide to let it absorb its nutrients and become bigger. That, in a nutshell, is what's happening and why everything is dying.
I was south of Okeechobee, where the sawgrass meets the sky, when I heard Big Sugar brag about the favors that he buys. And them Tallahassee backrooms, Tallahassee bribes, and them pictures of them cheating on their Tallahassee wives. Yeah, send the water south. We gather at the river and we march down to the locks, and we lose another summer while those politicians talk. And they promise us more money pounding on a podium. They push the deadline down the road and swear our day will come. We'll send the water south.
There's not a lot going on. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talking points. There's dialogue. That's it. There's no answers. There's no, we're gonna do this right now to help everyone. None of that is going on right now. We need to send it south, guys. The only way to fix the problem is to send it back in its natural way, and that's to send it to the Everglades, which is starving for water right now. The Everglades has the grasses that act as natural filters to filter out all the crap that's going on in that water. That's the way it's been happening up until recently. You got Goliath groupers by the hundreds, breeder snook by the hundreds. You know, every single organism that is alive in the waters are washing up on the beaches and in the canals. It's unbelievable the damage that has been done by a state that also protects these same animals that are dying. It's almost it's a weird situation because nobody has a sense of urgency that I've seen. Thanks for watching. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe, hit that bell notification so when I post a new video you can check out what I got going on. Normally I'm just trying to post just vlog videos, fishing vlogs. This is a little bit different. I know it's not the most upbeat thing that's going on, but it is very important to our way of life in Florida. So if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, let me know, comment below, let me know what your question is. I can do some research. If I don't already know the answer, I can dig and do some research and find the answer for you. But we've got a real problem here, and it doesn't look like there's any kind of a solution anytime soon. So everybody needs to join together. Everybody needs to join this fight. It doesn't matter if you live here or if you like visiting here, because when it comes time for you to visit, there's not going to be any beaches for you to visit unless you like hanging out in a China buffet dumpster. It's not going to be pleasant. Trust me when I say that these aren't the type of videos that I thought I'd be making whenever I decided to do this sort of thing, but it needs to get out there. You know, everybody needs to get on their social media, show up at meetings, do whatever you can to help out the situation. Hit a share button, share all this stuff that's going on, share the videos that everyone's posting, share the pictures, make people aware of what is going on to put pressure on our elected officials and put pressure on our wildlife commission. Do something about this issue and stop breaking their own laws. Stop breaking the laws that they set in place and stop killing our marine life. Cheers. We'll see you next time. Peace out. Hell, fucking sugar's bad for us anyway.
Yeah, the Army Corps of Engineers protects us from the flood. They march around in circles and get bogged down in the mud. And the Water District wants another study and a raise. But all that does is put things off and subsidize delays. Yes, in the